All right. Last but not least, we have an invited talk today by Racky, who's a Director of Philanthropic Development at Humanity and Inclusion Canada. HI Canada is a member of the Global Humanity and Inclusion Federation, which operates in over 60 countries. HI is an independent and impartial international solidarity organization that works in situations of poverty and exclusion, conflict and disaster. Their mission focuses on people with disabilities and other vulnerable populations and aims to meet their basic needs, improve their living conditions, and promote their dignity and rights. Today, Racky will share more about HI Canada's missions and their efforts to reduce armed violence. Please join me in welcoming her.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having us at this event. So I'm going to take the time to talk about humanity and inclusion, tell you about our mission and our actions that are related to armed violence reduction. We were actually supposed to have a specialist in innovation and AI in our actions related to armed violence reduction, but the person unfortunately couldn't attend. So I decided to still present our organization and what we do related to AVR. So some of you might know Humanity and Inclusion as Handicap International. So it was founded in 1982, and we were born from a mission to support victims of landmines in Cambodia. The organization was established in response to the Cambodian crisis during the Khmer Rouge era. So thousands of civilians, particularly children, were injured by landmines. So HI started by providing prosthetics and rehabilitation services in refugee camps. So today, the organization operates in 60 countries around the world, providing humanitarian aid and promoting inclusion. So HI's work, the core of our mission is really supporting vulnerable populations, particularly people with disabilities in situations of poverty, exclusion, conflict and disaster. And you might wonder why people with disabilities, because they are often left behind and overlooked in humanitarian and emergencies response. So we actually have three main areas of intervention. So we intervene in inclusive development, which includes the field of health, because HI, since its founding, has supported millions of people with rehabilitation services, assistive devices like prosthetics and wheelchairs. We also work to break barriers for children with disabilities, helping them access school through inclusive education projects. And in economic development, we actually help adults find sustainable employment opportunities, empowering them to achieve economic independence. So we also intervene in humanitarian action. So we intervene in situations of emergencies, crisis situations that are due to conflict or natural disaster. And finally, the third area of intervention, which is the protection of civilians and armed violence reduction. In armed violence reduction, HI is actually a global leader in mine clearance and risk education. So we advocated for treaties like the Ottawa Treaty on Landmines and the Convention on Cluster Munitions, ensuring that those weapons are banned worldwide. So when we talk about armed violence reduction, you might wonder what exactly we're talking about. So AVR actually includes different areas of intervention with a goal to reduce the impact of armed violence on communities and civilians. So HI is recognized, as I mentioned, as a global leader in this field with decades of expertise. So we work in this area. Our work in this area is critical to protecting civilians and creating safer environments in conflict-affected regions. So the focus is really on addressing the immediate dangers of explosive weapons and fostering long-term solutions for affected communities. So you might wonder how many people around the world are affected by conflict. So according to the UN, 25% of the world population lives in a country affected by conflict. And armed violence is actually a root cause of humanitarian crisis because 80% of humanitarian emergencies are related to conflict and armed violence. And there is, unfortunately and sadly, a dominance of civilian casualties because according to the 2023 Landmine Monitor report, 85% of explosive victims are civilians. And that's why the work that HI is doing in armed violence reduction is crucial, because it is highly impacting civilians. So there are actually 5 pillars to armed violence reduction and humanitarian mine action. So there's explosive ordnance disposal, which is the clearance of landmines and unexplosive explosives from dangerous areas. Risk education to actually educate communities to prevent injuries. Victim assistance through rehabilitation services and social inclusion of survivors. Advocacy by promoting international treaties like the Man Ban Treaty and the Convention on Cluster Munitions, and there is stockpile destruction, which is eliminating unused or obsolete weapons stockpiles. That pillar is not done by HI. We only do the 4 first because the stockpile destruction is the responsibility of the state. So I'm going to give you actually an idea of what exactly HI does on each of these pillars. So for the first one, explosive ordnance, the goal is actually to remove all explosive threats from a given area, making it safer for the local communities. This work actually allows displaced families to return home and ensure children can safely attend school or farmers can work their fields without fear. So there are different methods that include manual clearance, which is done by trained deminers, mechanical assets. We use animal detection systems, such as, like rats and dogs are trained to sniff out explosive. And there is innovative technologies because we currently use drones to help us actually improve safety and efficiency, especially in large and challenging areas. So in every action related to mine clearance, we actually work with local communities to identify high priority areas, and we consult residents and the authorities to ensure that our work addresses urgent needs, such as clearing roads to hospitals or farmland for crops. And here I'm giving you like photos so that you can have an idea of what landmines actually look like. So the photo on the left shows different type of mines to give you an idea of the size. And most of the time, they can be buried under sand and underground. And when a person or let's say a car drives on it, that's when it detonates. So the photo on the right was taken in March 2024. This was in Rafah in Gaza. And it's an illustration of an explosive ordnance. In this case, it's an unexploded bomb. As you can see, it's just in the middle of, the city. There are kids that are playing around, and unexploded ordnance can remain active for decades. So if the war ends today, 10 or 20 years later, someone can still be hurt by landmines or an unexploded ordnance. So it poses actually a significant risk to populations. Here you have an example of what it is to do manual clearance. So the photo on the left is actually a trained deminer, and the one on the right is demining that is being done with a trained dog. And both these photos were taken in Casamance, Senegal, where HI is doing demining actions. And here is a video of how we use drones in our demining activities. You have the sound. Okay, well, you can still read, So the second pillar that we work in violence reduction is risk education. So what we do is actually raise awareness among local population, especially children, about the danger of unexploded ordnance and landmines. You might wonder why children, because most of the time they are the victims of landmines and unexploded ordnance because they don't know how dangerous it is, and sometimes they play with it. And so we actually provide sessions using accessible materials like posters, videos, and interacting activities that are tailored to the literacy and cultural context of the communities. As you can see on the photo, this is an activity that is occurring in the school. So the goal is really to have a behavioral change by promoting the awareness of the risk that actually landmines and unexploded ordnance can be to the local communities. So we actually use public information campaigns, community-based risk education, training activities. So we plan activities in school, booklets are also distributed for children, and we obviously, yes, use social media to share videos and make sure that we extend the reach. And the third pillar is victim assistance. So we provide holistic support for victims of explosive devices, including medical care, prosthetics, physical rehabilitation, and psychosocial support. And our programs also include economic and social reintegration, empowering survivors to reclaim their independence and dignity. So we help both direct victims, so individuals that were killed or injured by landmines, and indirect victims that are families and the communities at large. So I'm going to give you an example of a few stories of beneficiaries that HI has helped. So on the left you have Hala, who was a victim of an airstrike while she was playing with her cousin at the bottom of their house when she was 4 years old, and she had an amputation of her right leg. And on the photo, it's actually her at the Sana Rehabilitation Center in Yemen, and she was actually, she received a prosthesis, and she's going through rehabilitation. And the photo on the right, it's actually Fayaz, who's 13 years old. He had an amputation of 2 of his legs following the explosion of an unexploded shell when he was 3 years old. And he received rehabilitation sessions from HI and a prosthesis as well. And on this photo, he's doing rehabilitation exercises at the Hope Disability Center in Kashmir, which is a region between India and Pakistan. And another story that I really like to share and to talk about is the story of Kana. Kana, in 2005, when she was 4 years old, was a victim of a landmine and she lost her leg. So she was fitted with a prosthesis by HI and received rehabilitation services that allowed her to regain mobility and independence. And today she's 24 years old and she still returns regularly to be followed at the Kampong Cham Rehabilitation Center. And Kana actually lives in Cambodia, which is where HI actually mission started. And she works as a tailor and wants to start again her studies to become a prosthetic and orthotic specialist to help others rebuild their lives just as she did. And I think Kana's story and journey is really a testament to the long-term support that Humanity and Inclusion provides to victims of armed violence. And the last pillar that we do in armed violence reduction is advocacy. So HAD actually played a pivotal role in the adoption of the Mine Ban Treaty, which is also known as the Ottawa Treaty, and the Convention on Cluster Munitions. So we actually were granted a Nobel Peace Prize as a founding member of the international campaign to ban landmines. And we continue to advocate against the use of explosive weapons in populated areas through the campaign like Stop Bombing Civilians. It is a campaign that is still running, and we have a petition. If you wish to sign it, we'll have a stand at the end of the event, and you can definitely sign it. And of course, we collaborate with governments, UN agencies, and international organizations to strengthen international norms against indiscriminate violence. So yeah, that's it for me. Actually, one last thing, the photo on the slide is actually a mural that we made in Montreal that is titled Stop Bombing Civilians. So if ever you want to visit it, it's on 116 Royce Street East, and it's actually a representation of Gaza. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. Do you have maybe any questions?
Thank you so much, Racky, for this talk and for all the work which your organization is doing. It's invaluable. Unfortunately, we are a bit over time, so we will not be able to take questions right now, but I highly encourage everyone to come to the booth of HRAIM Canada over there and talk to Racky and other representatives of HRAIM Canada. And with that, we will move towards the poster session. Yeah, we invite all the authors of the posters to to stick around and answer questions of the people who will be looking at your posters. In case you have any issues, let us know. We have all the pins and other things to put posters on. We also still have snacks and coffee, and then our poster presentation at 7, it will transition into the social and dinner. We will have food, and yeah, we're looking forward to talk with you more. And for tomorrow, we will start at 9, I believe, right? 9:15. Okay, 8:45 you come and we will have breakfast, and then at 9:15 we will have our first keynote talk. And this will be right now the end of the online stream, so thank you so much for online participants as well for joining us.